about a nonprofit's guide to end of year giving. Very stealthy, Kirsten. We are now recording. But we're going to be talking about a guide to end of year giving. I love to give these presentations. I give them every year. The goal today is to really talk about all of the different opportunities that nonprofits have to engage digital marketing efforts from now through the end of the year. A little about myself, just in case you've never been to a cause-inspired webinar before. Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm the head of enterprise marketing strategy, and that basically means that I work with a lot of different types of nonprofits today and in the past to help them execute their digital marketing strategies. And this specifically involves end of year or year-end giving. So typically what that looks like for a lot of nonprofits is using something like their Google Ad Grant account aligned with maybe some paid ads accounts, some Facebook marketing, some paid search marketing, YouTube marketing, just to kind of give this overall message of why someone would be willing or more likely to give during year-end giving. We're going to have some good statistics today to go over so I can kind of help you make that claim to your team or to your stakeholders as well if they're questioning the benefit of year-end giving. And that's just a little bit about my experience here at Cause. If you've ever heard of Cause Inspired before, I'm happy to introduce you. We are a full service digital marketing agency. We do work exclusively with nonprofits, and we basically specialize in something called the Google Ad Grant. I do have chat open. Could you let me know if you actually have the Google Ad Grant? Is there anyone here that has a Google Ad Grant account? Feel free to let us know in the chat. Okay, cool. So we do have a couple of folks that have the ad grant. That's perfect. I just want to make sure that the content, oh, cool. We also have a client in the chat. I just want to make sure the content's going to be geared to you all. So we're going to talk about ways that you can use your ad grant today specifically as well with year-end giving. But just so you know, Cause Inspired is full service. So that means that we do everything from paid ads management to Google Ads to web development, brand, all of that good stuff. If you ever have a question about our services or our packages, I will let you know I'm the technical person. I'm the one who works behind the scenes. So I will provide you all with a way to get in contact with us after this webinar is done. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the session overview. I know I've given you a sneak peek into a couple of items that we're going to talk about today in line with giving. I will also keep some time at the end for a Q&A in case you do have any questions that were not answered yet. But the first thing we're going to talk about is a little bit of defining year-end giving. I think this is really important just to make sure we're all on the same page. When I think of end-of-year giving, I don't exclusively think about Giving Tuesday. I'm sure a lot of the nonprofits in the chat right now would probably also agree. Giving Tuesday is great in concept, but it's really not the only thing that makes up year-end giving. I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about how to prepare your digital strategies. We'll go over ways that you can craft a strong campaign, locate your target audience, identify your target audience based on what platform that they're on, and then craft a strong message for them. And then we're going to wrap up the session today going over best practices per each of these four platforms. I want to talk you through some best practices for your organic search performance. So anything in the realm of content marketing or building up newsletter followers. Talk about best practices for Facebook ads. That's something that I typically work on a lot for year-end giving. And then we'll wrap up with Google Ads and specifically the Google Ad Grant. Okay. So what does end of year giving cover? And I'm sorry in advance if I'm kind of flipping back and forth between end of year giving and year-end giving. I do mean entirely the same thing for both. But from my perspective, it covers these three sections. So the first would be Giving Tuesday. I think immediately for a lot of people that are not in the nonprofit space, when they think of year-end giving, they're thinking of Giving Tuesday. It's definitely a great message to people to donate on a specific day of the year. There's a lot of matching programs that go on. There's a lot of traction and volume online that might go on, and maybe even organic social campaigns. But end of year giving involves a lot more than just Giving Tuesday. It also involves the holiday season. December is one of the most festive months of the year, as we like to say. It involves some of the majority of our giving holidays. And those are moments where people might be more compelled to make a gift or complete a donation. So it's important that we think about how we can engage them from their own perspective. And then, of course, kind of the more logistical side of end of year giving will be tax season. And we're going to talk about this strategically with the Google Ad Grant today. Um, Focusing on tax deductible donations is a great way to use your Google Ad Grant. There's a lot of different ways that you can target folks that are looking with keywords for tax deductible donations, ways to engage with donor advised funds or different, maybe non-traditional ways to donate or reasons to donate during tax season. And in December, it's kind of that last chance to donate before tax season begins. So those are the three things that I focus on when I think about end of year giving, but I can't just make those claims without providing you with a little bit of evidence. So I'm also going to note here two stats for you. The first is that 31% of all annual giving actually occurs in December. So that is a huge chunk of annual giving, and all of it happening in 1 month out of 12 months in the year. That's why December is a really important month for a lot of nonprofits. One stat we'll go over here in a second, and something we're going to talk about is when end of year giving starts, but it would probably surprise you to know that a lot of nonprofits won't even start planning end of year giving actually until November. So to plan all of your end of year giving in the month before the majority of your annual giving occurs is a very interesting strategy from my perspective. I definitely like to prepare in advance. And this is a great way to be able to prepare your campaigns, to prepare a lot of your giving goals in advance. So 31% of all that annual giving is happening in December. And out of all of those days in December, actually 12% of that annual giving statistically is occurring in the last 3 days of December. And that's why I focus a lot on the tax season call to actions, the tax deductible donations. Part of the reason why someone might be donating in those last 3 days of December is to get a donation in before the end of the year so they can write it off on their taxes or meet their giving goals, whatever is working best for them. So important to keep those stats in mind as a little bit of evidence for why we have some of the timelines that we do for you today. So the next question naturally is, when does end of year giving start? And it's a really good question. From my perspective, it's going to begin in November. We've got Giving Tuesday this year on November 29th. And then we've got a lot of giving holidays between December 18th and January 1st. We also have a lot of holidays where people are offline. So not a lot of people Googling on, Christmas Day or maybe even the first day of Hanukkah, not a lot of people Googling on Thanksgiving Day, which can make your reach on social or even Google Ads or YouTube a little hard to achieve. So you have to think about this end of year giving timeline with those dates in mind. If there's one thing I can get across today when it comes to timeline, it would be the earlier you can start planning your campaigns, the better. The earlier you can launch them, the better as well. Part of the reason why we like to always have this webinar in August is because it's finally a good time for us to start thinking about end of year giving. It's also a great time for you to start thinking about campaigns, experimenting with your different types of campaigns, and we'll be going over some of that today. A little statistic for you again here. While we just talked about November and December being those target months for end of year giving, only about 7.7% of all nonprofits start as early as September for their end of year giving. So September is, just a day away, and it feels very close to the end of the year. But really not a lot of folks start their end of year giving ask in September. And that's kind of what we would like to encourage you this year. The earlier you can get out your campaigns, your targeting, you can experiment with your audiences, with your platforms for end of year giving, the better performance that you could possibly have, because you'll have evidence for why your campaigns perform the way they do and all that good stuff. So that is a little breakdown of what end of year giving is, the timelines that you can expect for it. And now we're going to kind of transition into preparing for end of year giving. And you'll have to excuse me, I've been doing a lot of talking today, so I'm going to take a quick break for a sip of water. Awesome. Okay, so end of year giving preparation. We're going to start off with social media. So the reason why we preach a lot about starting early is so you can build up a good portion of your audience. It's going to be really hard to remarket to people who have previously donated to you if you haven't built up a list of followers. So that is a really goal for you between now and November for end of year giving preparations. Some pieces of advice that I have for building up your social media followers would be to post consistently, to incorporate your storytelling, and to always give your audience a call to action. I would say that those are the three areas that I notice people lacking in the most when it comes to nonprofit social media. Let's start off with posting consistently. It doesn't mean that you have to post every day, and it also doesn't mean you should be posting the same message on every platform every day. There's definitely a time and a place, but you don't want to only post 3 times a year and 2 of those times be in November and December. Definitely making sure that you have a little bit of a social media presence between now and November is going to help make the ask a lot easier. You'll probably also find that you have more likes and reactions on those posts. Incorporate storytelling. I'm sure we've got a couple of nonprofits in the chat here today that have annual appeal letters that are still mailed out to people. This was a huge opportunity that I found with a lot of my clients in the past, where they were mailing out their annual appeal letters that had that really good storytelling. Here's an experience from someone who's used our services before. Here's an experience from someone that we've helped before, but you're only putting that message in mail or in email. That's a great message to translate onto your social platforms too. So make sure you're incorporating that storytelling, that it's consistent, that you're giving those examples of the times that your organization has supported or helped someone thanks to your donor. They're the star of the show. And then the last thing here would be to give your audience a call to action. Telling your audience to follow or share your post is really not asking too much. And sometimes it's going to be hard for people to interpret what you want them to do with your post if you don't tell them. So I would say start off with softer call to actions. Ask people just to follow, to like, to share. It may feel silly in the moment as you're writing the post, but the more you do it, the more consistent it's going to feel. And that's going to really help with this next point that I want to make, along with building your followers, which would be to promote your organization, promote awareness of your organization. I just today had a really good conversation with someone about engaging everyone at every level of your donor funnel. And those are things that need to be happening now in August and in September and in October. Engaging people at a content marketing level is awesome. If you have blogs or articles on your website that you can share on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, those are what's really going to stick with people, especially if they're engaging with the storytelling aspect of your organization. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is your impact. And you'll probably hear people talk about this the most when they mention nonprofit giving, is they'll say something along the lines of, you need to tell people what $1 of donated money means for your organization. I do agree with that message to an extent, but I would like to take it one step further. And I think that's actually a bigger part of your preparation than it really is the deciding factor of whether or not someone's going to give to your nonprofit. Telling people where their money goes, or at least sharing their impact, is more of the marinade of what makes a really good donor. So this is a way that we can prep people into coming into our donor funnel. We can talk about what past donors have been able to do. You want to make sure that you're giving them the perspective of being the superhero, the one that helps, that kind of star moment, and then sharing the story of the results from there. So definitely share your impact, but you don't always have to wait until you're asking for a donor or a dollar before you can share your impact. I think that's something that's really great to do to help build your followers and to promote more awareness. Now, in line with that content marketing, your search engine organic performance, otherwise known as your SEO, is a huge tool that you can use in this. Content marketing, I would say, is one of the biggest keys to the Google Ad grant. And it's also one of the biggest keys to your general performance on digital media. If you've got good content on your site, if you have articles from other organizations like yours that you can share, that you can put on your site, that you can talk about on social, that's a great way to make something very easy to share and very easy for someone to like. It's also another way to talk around the topic. And this is something that we advise a lot of nonprofits on doing with their Google Ad Grant. Maybe you want to target moms because you know that your number one donor is parents, people who have already had children, and maybe you also are looking at your demographics and you're noticing that the majority of your donors are female. So you decide that your audience would be moms. A great way to bring them into your site would be of thinking of articles that would speak to moms. Maybe best holiday crafts to do with your kids, best holiday ideas or best ideas to get your kids in the holiday spirit. Focusing in on those topics that they're going to be interested in might not lead you to a direct donation, but it's going to give you an opportunity to give them a call to action once they're on their site. So in case you are still having to make the claim for content marketing and its importance at your organization, know that that is a huge portion of your end of year giving preparation. A great way to think of content marketing ideas is to use your Google Ad Grant account or your Google Ads account in general and perform some keyword research. There's tons of really good keyword research tools inside of Google Ads that can let you know what keywords people are interested in. And then as an alternative, you can also use tools like Google Trends, Google Search itself, Ubersuggest. There's tons of different keyword research tools that will give you a better idea of what people are looking for in the realm of your organization, in the realm of your target audience. So those are my notes for preparation, but I do have a little checklist that I want to give you specific to Giving Tuesday. So with Giving Tuesday, every year I have this short little checklist that I like to go over, and it basically just makes sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to what you need to have done prior to Giving Tuesday started. I will say organically, Giving Tuesday tends to perform a lot better than it will paid media wise. You can definitely boost your posts on Giving Tuesday. That is a great way to engage people without having to put down a lot of money towards some advertising. But I will also say that not a lot of people are out there Googling. I wish they were, but not a lot are Googling Giving Tuesday places to donate. So these are ways that you can make sure that you're prepped for the people that already support you to easily support you on Giving Tuesday. The first thing that I want to suggest is that you go to the Giving Tuesday website and find local movements in your area. There might be live events that are going on. There might be local e-events that are going on, online events, webinars, things along those lines that you can actually engage with that'll have donors there. So definitely go to the Giving Tuesday website and find your local movement. Also, go ahead and take that time to register your organization on the Giving Tuesday website. And they will actually provide you with a couple of different tools that you can use. So they've got social media toolkits, they've got branding and logos, all that good stuff. That way your Giving Tuesday content really looks like it belongs in that Giving Tuesday world. So definitely make sure you check that out. And then I'm also going to note here that this is a great time to pre-plan your organic and your paid social media posts. I'm a huge believer in posting in the moment. I think it's important to capture your audience where they're at, but Giving Tuesday is one of those really easy holidays where you can pre-plan a lot of your content. Stick with the storytelling that you've decided on from earlier, engage your folks with the Giving Tuesday call to action, use hashtags, provide them with the link to your donation form. And most importantly, if you are doing any sort of Giving Tuesday work on Facebook or calls on Facebook, then I would suggest that you also have a Facebook fundraiser started. So that can be something that is started by your organization, or you can also make sure that your page has the donate button on Facebook. That's pretty easy to set up in your settings. Maybe after this is done, I can provide everyone with a link in the chat on how to do that in case it's something that's interesting to you. I'm also going to note if you have any Giving Tuesday blog content from last year or the previous year, just update the dates on those blogs. There's no need to reinvent the wheel unless your story has completely changed since then. Feel free to continue to use those articles, update the dates, maybe rewrite that initial paragraph or headline, and continue to use what's worked well for your organization. Definitely feel free to repurpose that. I would also, during this time, make sure that you're scheduling your email blasts so you can increase your newsletter signups. Because one of the best parts about Giving Tuesday is that it's a great opportunity to create remarketing lists for return donors next year. So if you prepare properly this year, then this time next year, you'll have a list of folks that you can remarket to and remind that they gave to you last year for Giving Tuesday and ask them to give again. And then the final thing that I'll note here is that you'll want to look into matching opportunities. Typically, Facebook has matching opportunity every year. I haven't heard a lot of information on the one that they're offering this year, but also making sure that you're reminding your audience to check with their employer for matching opportunities. That's a great post to have in your Giving Tuesday queue. You can have it say something along the lines of looking to make more of an impact for Giving Tuesday. Have you asked your employer if they have matching donation programs? I know here at Cause that whenever there's something big happening in our area, we typically do a matching program with our employees to match their donation to show that we care about what they're interested in. And the same thing happens with a lot of other companies that are probably a lot bigger than us as well, and might even have automated forms for that. So make sure you're asking your audience to inquire about those matching opportunities. The last thing that I'll note here is that we've got this really pretty donation page here, but it's really nothing that is too fancy. I wanted to provide this on this slide to give you an idea of a Giving Tuesday specific donation page. If you have the opportunity, I know that this might be a luxury for some nonprofits and not necessarily the rule, but if you have the opportunity to make a custom landing page for your Giving Tuesday donations, I've personally noticed a increase in donations as a result of those pages. So even if you can just have something along the lines of Giving Tuesday at the top, you know, putting some copy in the description section here for Giving Tuesday, and making sure that you give people a really easy way to give that doesn't ask a lot of questions, and easy, more accessible platforms to give with too. So you want to make sure that you're giving them the opportunity to donate via PayPal and Venmo and all that good stuff, but we're going to dive into that when we get into the logistics section here. Okay, so that's your Giving Tuesday checklist. And at this point, we have talked about preparing for end of year giving, defining that timeline, and making sure that you are all prepped for Giving Tuesday. That is really the base information that you need to know before we can talk about what makes a good campaign. And that is where we are transitioning to now. So we're going to talk about 3 different sections today. The first is going to be logistics. I'm going to give you some logistical overviews for what makes a good campaign for your organization. We're going to talk about ways that you can engage your audience. We'll discuss, using multiple platforms for your donations. And then also a huge part of this, and this could be because I'm a behind the scenes person typically, is going to be tracking your results. It is super important to make sure that you know all of the work that you've put into a campaign, all of those results. I think it's one of the biggest benefits of digital marketing. We're going to talk about that today. After that, we're going to go over the appeal of what makes a good campaign. So how does it appeal to donors? How can you plan your copy? Different tips for ways that you can change your messaging on different platforms and how to tell your story. And then finally, we'll wrap things up here with talking about messaging. And messaging to me is probably one of the most important areas of a good campaign. You're going to want to experiment. You're going to want to take something that you know works really well, and then you're also going to want to try something new. So we'll divide that and conquer. All right, so let's go ahead and get into campaign logistics. First things first, when it comes to your campaign, I want everyone here to engage their donors on multiple platforms, but to give a different message on every platform. Social media wise, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, if you're still using that, and even Pinterest as a platform. There's tons of different ways on social that you can engage your audience and give them a customized call to action. When you're talking to your audience on Instagram, you're going to want your copy to be very short versus when you're talking to your audience on LinkedIn, you might want to use a lot more hashtags because that's how a lot of folks search on LinkedIn. So think about using multiple platforms, decide which platforms are the most lucrative for you, which platforms do you have the majority of your followers, which platforms do you see the most engagement, do you get the most shares. Pulling those numbers now can really help to determine which platforms you need to focus your end of your giving efforts on the most. Email and organic search engine performance. We've kind of dived into these a little bit as well. With email, it's a great way to re-engage your audience once they've completed a donation, or if they have completed one in the past and you have their email information, definitely look into engaging them in another ask to donate to you this year. For organic performance, I won't rehash that because we've talked about it a bit, but make sure that you are engaging in those content marketing pieces, driving new blogs on your site. Provide different ways to give. Facebook fundraisers, we've talked a little bit about, but make sure that you do have those live and ready to go. PayPal is a great way for people to donate. That might be a little bit easier than going through a full donation form online. If you don't have a PayPal option now, that is something that you should definitely look into. And then another one that I would throw out there, and I know there are some alternatives to this, but anything along the realm of Venmo or Zelle, where someone could easily send you money through an app on their phone, is also making donating more accessible to your audience. So logistically, we want to think about how can we reduce barriers for our potential donors. And by having more ways for them to give, you are giving them more opportunities to donate to you. And then the last thing that I'll note here is that you should definitely track the results. If you do not have GA4 set up, I definitely would recommend that you do set that up before end of your giving happens. We have an awesome GA4 article on our website that I am happy to share, and I will pop it into the chat right now. Let me just send that to everyone. And if you're watching this presentation in a recording, then you can feel free to visit our website. It's our GA4 Living Resources page. And it basically gives you a recap of all of our GA4 presentations that we've done in the past. We've had tons of how to navigate GA4, how to set it up on your website. And the main reason why I'm telling you today that you should have it installed is so you can track your results. I definitely want you to know how many folks are coming to your donation landing page versus how many are actually completing a donation. And being able to report back on that data will help you better understand if your campaigns were effective or not. The last thing that I'll mention here is to use a UTM. If you do not use GA4, or if you do use GA4 and you have a hard time noticing when users are completing a donation via Facebook, you're not seeing that info pop up, I would definitely recommend using a UTM. Here's another link in the chat for you. It's an easy UTM builder. And basically what a UTM is it is a small little addition to your website URL that you can add that's going to send information back to your analytics platform about the source, the medium, the campaign name, the content name of whatever link it is that a user clicked on. So I'll give you a quick overview of what that looks like here. Hopefully you can see this on my screen. But if I wanted to track when a user went to my webinars landing page, like you can see in this example here, I would simply just want to put in the source. The source would be Google if this was a Google ad grant ad. The medium would be CPC. I could pop in the name of my campaign. And then down here at the bottom, it's going to add this little addition to my URL. And that's going to really help me better understand in Google Analytics if a user is coming from Google, what medium are they coming from? What campaign were they coming from? So definitely find ways to use those additional tracking resources. If you have any questions about tracking resources, always feel free to reach out to us. Also, like I said, I'll have some Q&A time at the end of this. But we have to move on and talk a little bit about our social media guide. This is aligning with our logistics portion, but it's also entering in the question of appeal. So, how do you find your audience? What platform are they on? I just mentioned to you that, let me fix the presentation really quick. Sorry. There we go. But I just mentioned to you that I would really love if you all looked at your analytics and saw what platforms you had the most followers on, or which platforms that you typically get the most engagement with. But I also want to look at it from the other perspective too, and give you some insights on where your audience might already be. So right now, based off of age range, we can tell a lot of which platforms your audience might be. So that's where we'll start off with this conversation. If your donors are typically in the age range of 15 to 25, then some popular platforms you can target them on would be TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram. You can do these organically, or you can focus on paid media efforts for these. The only note that I'm going to say here is, typically with TikTok, there's a lot of misconception that for like a paid ad, you need to have a big following. That's really not the case, actually. And then I'd also note the same thing for YouTube, and then also for Instagram as well. You really don't need huge followings for paid advertising to work well on those platforms. For something like Twitter or Snapchat, you might need some more recognition. But if you're trying to engage that donor audience, you want to meet them where they're at, these are great places to start, where you can do it organically or through paid media. If your donor age range is closer to the 25 to 40 audience, then you're going to want to focus in on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook and Instagram. I put Facebook and Instagram as one because you can do targeting on both using just Facebook Manager, Facebook Ads Manager. And this is where a good chunk of your audience is going to be. They're going to be on Instagram Reels, Facebook Stories, Instagram Stories. Under one hub of Facebook and Instagram are so many different placements that your ads could show. And that's a great spot to engage all of these different ranges of age on those platforms. And then I would say donors 40 and up, great spots to engage them where they're going to be interactive with you would be Pinterest, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Pinterest specifically is a great spot because you've got the call to action already to pin, to save. So if someone wants to go to Pinterest, they're typically someone who's looking to click off site and go to other sites. So it's a great spot for you to advertise your organization right there. You also have YouTube and then LinkedIn as well. Great spots to target someone by their job title, by what they do for a living, and then also what they might be interested in. Those are some stats on platforms for your social media audience. And now we're going to deep dive a little bit more into the appeal. And I'm going to give you some pieces of advice for that appeal portion of your campaign, what makes a user want to donate. The first thing that I'm going to say is to use different copy on different platforms. We've talked about this a little bit, but if you copy and paste the same copy you're using in Facebook onto LinkedIn, it's not going to read correctly. You really need to make sure that the call to action you're giving on Facebook involves using that Facebook fundraiser. You can easily donate to us using our Facebook fundraiser link here. Versus on LinkedIn, you might want to bring someone back to your website, learn more about what our impact is with these donations by visiting our impact page here and link your impact page. Two different call to actions, both with the same goal to build up donors. And I would say that the reverse can also be true. You can have the same call to action, but you want to make sure that the copy matches those platforms. So in that example, you might say on Facebook, donate to our Facebook fundraiser here and link your Facebook fundraiser. And then on LinkedIn, you might also give a call to action to donate to your fundraiser, but just link it on your website. There's tons of different ways that you can customize that messaging. You just want to make sure that the copy itself, the appeal, feels like it was written by a human and that a human should read it. The second thing I'll note here is to customize your messaging for your donor segments. This is something that we also don't see happening a lot in the nonprofit space. You might think, well, how can I target, segments of my donor audience on the same platforms? And I would actually focus it based off of demographics. So we just talked about the different age ranges that are on different social media platforms. On a platform like TikTok, you really don't want to use the same messaging as a platform like LinkedIn because you're looking at someone who almost speaks completely differently, and is going to be in that mindset for the platform. So when we're focusing on something like Facebook, you can focus your donor language on maybe an audience that is more 25 to 40. Maybe they're focusing on things that involve their career or their family life. Versus when you're on TikTok, you can appeal more to what might happen before there, like college and all of that good stuff. On LinkedIn, you're also thinking more of people that are focused on their career, looking for jobs, retirement, all of that good stuff there. So there is a range of what kind of customization you can have for your messaging depending on your donor segments. And I would definitely encourage you to take a look at that. The other thing I'll note here is to share your story in all of these different campaign appeals. You're going to want to build trust with your audience before you can just directly ask them for money. So make sure that you're making them feel like they are the star in your storytelling. This is the impact of a previous donor just like you, or thanks to your donations that you have given us in the past. This is what we've been able to do. Remind them of what their dollar does before you ask for them to donate, right? This isn't the last thing that we should say to somebody before they give. It's probably the first thing. Messaging wise, I do have a couple of other notes here. So focus on your donors. I've talked a lot about this. Rather than highlighting the problems of your organization, focus on the impact that your donors create. Humanize your tone. If people don't understand your message, then it's going to be really difficult for them to receive that message. People respond better to people. Having stock images in your advertising of people, that's going to appeal more to your audience. Telling stories that come from a first person's perspective, that's going to appeal more to your audience. Even writing content on your website from the voice of someone who is working at your organization or who has been impacted by your organization is more impactful than speaking as an organization. People love pictures as well. They also love videos. If you have good images, if you have good videos, definitely always be using them in your social posts, organic and paid. Text ads are great. I love text ads. I won't be caught on a recording saying that I don't like Google search ads because they'll tell you that they have been really impactful for a lot of people. When it comes to the grand scheme of things, in terms of what I would recommend, I'm always going to lean towards the visual no matter what. That's what really appeals to donors. That's what really appeals to people when they can visualize themselves in that situation or people that they might know. And then the last thing I'll note here, which feels kind of self-explanatory, is to make your call to action clear. Don't have multiple call to action, have a singular one. Make it consistent across platforms, but customized to that donor segment. All right, now we're going to talk about different ways that you can define your audience. We've already played around with some of these. We've talked about age range, we've talked about device, but I'm going to break it down a little further. The first way that you can define your audience on digital media to create a strong campaign would be by demographic. Thinking about what platform they are on based off of their age range or device is really important. Location is also important for your demographics. If you have a local audience, definitely focus your messaging on the area versus if you have a really large national audience, you might want to run multiple sets of ads in multiple different locations to give everyone a more customized call to action. You can also target your audience based off of their interests. What are their hobbies, their lifestyles, their communities? These are options for targeting inside of Facebook, Instagram, Google ads, such as display, discovery, YouTube, LinkedIn even. These are a great starting point. You can also view these interests inside of GA4 if you have your GA4 set up, or if you still have your Universal Analytics account, you can look to see what your donor interests are in there as well. You also have behaviors. So what kind of content are your users viewing? How do they engage with your content? What are they browsing? Where are they interacting? The reason I bring this up is because a really great targeting option for you is placement targeting, topic targeting. Instead of thinking, what kind of donor am I advertising on YouTube? Ask yourself the question, what kind of YouTube video is my donor watching? and focus your ad on that YouTube video. If you know that you work with, animal welfare, then making sure that your ad shows up on a video that might be about animal welfare or animal rights is a really great way of meeting your donor where they're already at. That way you don't have to go through all of the work of figuring out what their age range is on average, their income, their household status, all that good stuff. You can just focus it in on, well, where are they at right now? And then the last thing I'll mention here is involvement. And I know that this might not be easy for everyone to use because it does involve remarketing, but I would definitely recommend finding ways to capture people that have already interacted with you. If they've gone to your website before, that's a great starting point for a remarketing list in GA4. If they've volunteered with you before, that's also a really great way to re-engage them for a donation call to action at the end of the year. And then, of course, past donors feels the most obvious, so I won't go into that one too much. All right, this next slide is going to look really overwhelming, but I have a slide that is going to make it feel nice and calm. So here I've got tons of different ways that you can find your audience. I don't want to just tell you to go find these people. I want to also help you better understand where they are. I've got this in case you are looking at the recorded version of this and you want to screenshot this slide, you're more than welcome to. But for everyone who's listening live today, we're going to look at it in a more digestible format with some cute visuals as well. So there's tons of different ways that you can find your audience, and you have tons of different donors online. One of the first kind of donors, the ones that I would say probably come to mind as a stereotypical donor, would be someone who's a one-time donor, an individual donor. You can find these people on social media. You can also find these people in your email newsletters. Those are where you should be engaging those individual donation call to actions. If you want to go for more of a monthly donation or recurring donation call to action, you're going to need a dedicated web page for that on your website. You're going to want a donation form that focuses automatically on setting up monthly donations. And you're also going to want to remind these people via email to donate monthly. For crowdfunding or peer-to-peer funding, I would say to focus on launching your campaigns on social platforms that have tons of stories, visuals, incentives, reasons that people are going to want to give. You want to make sure that when you're asking others to engage their friends and family in donating, that they've got easy points for talking about it, especially if they don't know a lot about your organization. So crowdfunding is definitely more of a social media platform moment, and focus on those visuals. Corporate donors, I'm going to say LinkedIn right off the bat. That feels like the most obvious, but what you're going to want to hone in on here are your CSR goals. Anything that involves corporate social responsibility. How can you make it easier for corporations or big organizations to complete a donation on your site or to get their employees involved with donating with you? Cause-related donors, these are going to be a little bit harder to find, but if you're looking to target someone based on their interest for your cause, you're going to want to focus on two things. The first would be communities online. So you'll want to look into platforms like Facebook member groups or LinkedIn member groups. And then you'll also want to focus on your internal content, making sure that your blogs and your articles are speaking to those causes. That's the best way to build a community of your own cause-related donors on your website. We also have people who are advocacy driven. I'm in Florida. We just experienced a hurricane yesterday. We've got tons of people who are, in a bad situation for it out there on the Tampa Bay coast up towards Perry. And I've seen tons of ads marketed to me in the past 24 hours to donate to them. It's definitely something that speaks to me because I'm in the area and I know people that probably have been affected by that hurricane. And that's a great example for an advocacy-driven donor. You want to meet them in the moment, right when you're asking them to engage with your organization. So if it's disaster relief, that has to come out ASAP, the day of, or even the day before if you can prepare for it. If you're focusing more on like a movement, like a political movement, or a movement that might involve, planning or an event, then that's where you can engage people with online petitions and advocacy platforms. Getting someone to add their voice or sign up is a great way to get their email address so you can remarket to them in the future for an advocacy-based donation. And then the last thing that I'll mention here will be lapsed donors. These are people who have donated to you in the past but haven't re-engaged with you again. Email campaigns is definitely the best way to re-engage them, but I would also challenge you to look into retargeting on social media. Facebook has very easy audience manager tools that you can use to create a remarketing list to past donors. You can even create a remarketing list for people that have donated to you through Facebook. So don't feel like you have to set up big analytics to get those remarketing lists. As long as you have a Facebook ad account, you have the means to make it happen. Okay, taking a quick break. And hopefully you feel a little bit more equipped now to finding your audience online. I will go ahead and start diving into these best practices. We've got 4 to go over, and then we'll wrap up with the Q&A. But let's go ahead and start off with your best practices for social media. So this involves all of the platforms that you see icons for here on the left. The first thing that I'm going to note is, of course, gearing your copy towards the audience on that platform, scheduling out your posts in advance across those multiple platforms, and cross promotion. Cross promotion is a great way of reusing your copy in a way that doesn't feel unhuman. So if you are posting new landing pages on your Facebook account, definitely feel free to post those same landing pages on your LinkedIn account. Just like we talked about earlier, just switch up the messaging. You can keep the call to action all the same. For your paid social posts, I would love for you to focus in more on those demographics, but also think about where your audience is at. Make sure that you're nurturing them from now into November. So that way it's not just a random call to action that they get on Giving Tuesday whenever it's time for them to donate. So make sure that you're speaking to the people that are already following you, and that you continue to do that on social media. For organic search, you're going to always want to create content with SEO in mind. I apologize in advance if this slide gets a little too technical, but for those in the chat right now that want that more technical approach, I'm happy to give it to you. So the first thing that I'll note for you for better organic search engine performance is to optimize your website. You need to increase your load speed. If you're having trouble figuring out what your load speed is, I will send you a link in the chat for Google's page speed insights. Here we go. And this is a great way to understand how fast your website is. And if it needs optimization, it will tell you what kind of optimization it needs. You'll also want to look into removing iframes and making sure that if you are using pop-ups or inline forms, that they're very strategic and not on every single page of your site. Use a lot of internal linking. I noticed that a lot of people, when they write content, will link out to other websites. That is great when you're looking to build up a relationship with the other website that you're linking out to. But for donation purposes, make sure that you're doing a lot of internal linking. Link back to your homepage, link back to your donation page, to your About Us page, your impact page, throughout the content that you're writing. It's a great way to keep someone on your site and also help them learn more about you without losing them. Repurpose your existing blog content. I'm a huge believer, and if you've written it before, all you need to do, as long as it's your content that you own, is rewrite it, make sure that it's optimized with good keywords, and not have to reinvent the wheel for yourself every single year, because that can be really difficult, especially for a nonprofit to do. Optimize your content for mobile. This is huge. When you are on we'll take the page speed insights page, for example. When you are on a website, all you need to do this is right click on the website and choose inspect. And you're going to see in the inspect form here what that website looks like on mobile. If it doesn't look like something that can be easily used or navigated, then you definitely need to optimize your website for mobile ad performance. That is a really easy way to bring in more donations for a mobile user-friendly audience. And then the last thing that I'll note here is to analyze your existing search intentions. So that basically means do keyword research. We've already talked about different ways that you can do keyword research, but I will also encourage you all to set up a Google Search Console if you do not already have one set up. Really helpful way of getting free analytics on how you perform organically. I'm just gotta fix that. Sorry. There we go. Okay. And one more note about Google Ads before we talk about the ad grant. If you have paid Google Ads, then you're probably running ads in one of these realms, which would be YouTube, display, or discovery. The first thing I'm going to say for anything surrounding Google Ads is to know the basics. Always start off with a test budget. I recommend a test budget of under $100. You just want to see how people are performing when they see your YouTube video, how they're engaging with your content once they search something, once they look at your ad, before you invest a lot of spend into it. The second thing, as far as our basics go, is to segment your ad copy to match your call to action. Your copy on YouTube is going to be a lot shorter in terms of the text that you have available versus your copy on display. On display, you've got a lot more characters to work with. You have headlines, descriptions, long headlines, versus on YouTube, you really only have 15 characters to make a call to action. So start thinking about what that call to action would be for your organization. Would it be donate now, learn more about us, get started? My brain, after years and years of writing ads, thinks in 15 characters all the time for YouTube. So feel free to just pull up a character counter and start going through a couple of options that you could use for within that character limit. And then the last thing I'll note for the basics is to make sure that your landing page matches strategically what you're advertising. Like we said earlier, if you're advertising Giving Tuesday, have a Giving Tuesday specific landing page. If you're advertising monthly giving, make sure that you've got that monthly giving landing page. For YouTube ads, you can decide if you want to show up before, during, or after a YouTube video. But I would really only suggest running YouTube ads if you have high quality video content or YouTube content. You can run things that you've already posted on YouTube before. That's totally fine. And you can give a new call to action to it as well. For YouTube itself, I would say it's definitely more of an awareness platform than it is driving direct action. It's very hard to acquire direct donations from YouTube unless you have a very compelling campaign. But like we gave with a couple examples earlier, focus on what placements people are already on. For your display ads, always make sure you use a dynamic ad format. If you're working with an agency right now and you have no idea what kind of format they're using for their display ads, make sure you ask them. Dynamic ads are going to help you show up in more positions, but they give you less control over what the ads look like. That's fine. You want your ads to blend in to somebody's feed. If I'm reading an article on a news website and I see something that very obviously looks like an ad because it's branded to the nines, then I'm probably going to scroll past it really quickly. We want things that feel organic, that feel like they match the vibe of the article that you're reading, and that they fit in pretty well. And that is I would say, the biggest advantage of display. So definitely use dynamic ads rather than static ads. And make sure you're monitoring your placements every week. You don't want to just run your ads anywhere with display. I've seen lots of tricky situations where they will just be showing up on random websites. So make sure you're looking at all your display placements every single week. Discovery ads are a lot newer of a platform for donors. So this is one where we don't really have a lot of information. I would say if there's two things I know for sure, it's one, you need these ads to be mobile friendly. You need your landing page and your website to be mobile friendly if you're running discovery ads. And then the second thing is that you're going to want to focus on building followers or lead generation. I have not seen a lot of success with this resulting in direct donations, but it's great for lead generation. Okay. Now we're going to wrap up with some notes for your Google Ad Grant. We started off this call by seeing who had a Google Ad Grant, and I saw a couple people in the chat who do, which is awesome. For those of you who don't have a Google Ad Grant, the quick overview is that Google offers qualifying nonprofits $10,000 every month to run Google search ads. Those are the text ads that you see that appear when you search something like pizza place near me. They say sponsored, they come up right at the top, and they're a great way to engage people that are already looking for something in the realm of your organization. So if someone's looking for set up donor advised fund and your ad is the first thing that shows, and it says donor advised fund for animals, and they can click through to your website and get the information that they need to set that up, that's a great way to engage them you have up to $10,000 of free grant money every month to do that. The Google Ad Grant is really designed to drive traffic to your website. It can help you to increase your conversions, otherwise known as your goals, your website goals. And then it also gives you great information on your audience. I mentioned a couple times today, if you have a Google Ad Grant, make sure you're looking at your keywords, your search terms, that you're using those keyword planning tools, because you can get free information about your donor audience with your Ad Grant account. So two questions that I typically get for ad grants around this time of year. The first is, what can I do for Giving Tuesday? I would say create strategic Giving Tuesday content. You're going to want Giving Tuesday content marketing that talks about Giving Tuesday and also around Giving Tuesday. Focus on the storytelling, focus on that appeal to your audience, and then find keywords that users are searching for based on that story. So this could be surrounding ways to give, matching donations, general Giving Tuesday keywords. You can bid on those, drive them to your website, but it could also be something around like, holiday stories, holiday miracles, things along those lines, where it might feel a little bit broader, but it's a great way to get someone to your website for the first time. And then I'd also say, if you're really looking to drive Giving Tuesday content, anyone who's searching for your name on Giving Tuesday, land them on your Giving Tuesday landing page. There is nothing wrong with doing that. You're giving them the call to action right away. And worst case scenario, your bounce rate might be a little higher for one day out of the year. Definitely an okay thing to pass up. And then the other question that I get is, what can I do for giving season itself? And the only two pieces of advice I'll give is to make sure that you create holiday content that can stand alone, that feels a little evergreen, and it doesn't really reference giving or donating to your organization. And maybe it's just acts as an introduction to bringing those users on your website. The second thing that I'll note for this is to give your users a strong call to action to sign up for softer conversions, like signing up for your newsletter, so that way you can remarket to them in the future using the Google Ad Grant. The Google Ad Grant is a great tool for bringing people to your website and then using other platforms to bring them back to ask them to continue to donate in the future. And with that, I think I have probably talked everyone's ears off, so I will go ahead and take a quick break. Thank you all for joining us today. If any of this was interesting, if you want to know more about the Google Ad, if that sounds like something you'd want us to procure for you, or if you're interested in what we can do for your digital marketing strategy, please feel free to reach out to us. We've got great forms on our website, causeinspiredmedia.com. I already popped into the chat that GA4 Living resource page, so be sure to check that out. And thank you for joining us. I'm going to stay another 10 minutes to do a little Q&A. First, I'm going to take a quick water break. Okay, so we've got, yes.
Oh, I was about to read you from the chat, but if you can see it too, go right ahead.
Sure thing, I will go ahead. So we start off with a question from Jamie. For those with small or non-existent team that might be going into their first end of year giving campaign and who might find this comprehensive approach overwhelming, yes, totally fair. What are 3 or 4 elements that you would say are non-negotiable for a beginner level campaign? Jamie, you read my mind. It is so hard to put together this presentation every year because I have to address every level of every nonprofit. I work a lot with enterprise level nonprofits who already have those campaigns prepped and those ideas prepped, but I started off working with, a chapter of an organization that wanted to have an end of year giving strategy, and it was a lot smaller. So I've seen it in all different realms, or all different phases. I would say if I were to choose 3 non-negotiables, the first would be social media presence, making sure that you're priming your audience ahead of Giving Tuesday. I would start in September, making sure that you've got that consistency, and just choose for a beginning end of your giving strategy. I would say just choose 3 platforms tops and try to have a message on them every single week, a consistent post every week, every other week, if that's too much is fine too. And the second thing I would say is choose one singular story of impact to surround all of your end of your giving content on. One person that you've helped, one individual that you've impacted, one way that a user's dollar has made a difference, and let that be the story that everyone can learn and relate to. People have a lot of issues with frequency. You know, they might think, oh, my ad's showing too often. But the reality is people might not even see your ad showing the first 2 or 3 times it appears. Giving that nice, consistent message is not a bad thing at all. And then the third thing I would say for a beginner level campaign, aside from having the consistent social posting and focusing on a singular message, would be to branch out into as many donation platforms as you can. Internally on your website, you have one, but try to give your users different ways to donate via PayPal, maybe even Venmo. Try to look into ways that you can create a Facebook fundraiser and have the stakeholders in your organization share those too. If you have board members who have good reach, have them share the Facebook fundraisers. I found that to be a very grassroots way of starting a peer-to-peer campaign, really. So, oh, and that reminds me, you can use peer-to-peer campaign platforms too, like GoFundMe, all of that good stuff. So those would be my 3 basic non-negotiables. I'll just recap them again. Consistent social posting, making sure that you are having a strong singular story across all of your platforms, and also making sure that you've got accessible ways for your audience to donate, even if it means doing a little peer-to-peer fundraising. Also, honey, it does look like you've got some work to do next month, according to one of your clients, so that's super exciting. And aside from that, I'm not seeing any other questions. Was there any other questions that I might have missed?
I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
We have the Google grant and we've got a lot of different ad campaigns going. Can you actually put a budget to a targeted donor for retargeting campaign so that all the money's not being spent on all the other
Yeah.
clicks to because we're getting a lot of engagement with that, but from our membership and people finding out more about our programming and stuff, but I don't want to spend the extra dollars on that because we're already at capacity, but I'm looking at, can we do a budget for retargeting for donor specific only?
I love that question. It's a Google ad grant account, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I know we'd have to put dollars to that for retargeting, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question because with the Google Ad Grant account, it has so many different guidelines than a normal Google Ads account. So it's one of those moments where you do have to think very strategically about how you can use that spend. And what you noted here is that you've got campaigns that are working in the ad grant, but they're probably leading to programs that are maxed out for you, places where you don't really need more eyeballs, and the places where you want more people are not gaining as much traction, most likely because search volume is low or competition is really high. With the ad grant, you can totally set a campaign budget and say, I want to spend $200 in our donation campaign and make that change. But unfortunately, because of how it's designed, it won't automatically spend the money there. So what I would suggest for you is to actually engage your users on the pages that they're going to already with your ad grant account. So if you're getting a ton of traffic to a specific content marketing piece that maybe doesn't mean a lot to you, look into adding a pop-up on that page that gives someone a strategic call to action to make a donation or to view your ways to give page. Rewrite articles that are working well in the grant or landing pages that are working well in the grant to give them those strategic call to actions. It's a little bit more of a roundabout way of using the grant, but it really helps to preserve the traffic that you're getting while also customizing your call to action to something that means more for your organization. For remarketing, what you're going to want to do with the ad grant is make sure that it's connected to your GA4 account. As long as it's connected to your GA4 account, you'll be able to create remarketing lists inside of GA4 of folks that have clicked your website from Google Ads. And then you can use that remarketing list on other platforms if you run paid ads on YouTube or display. And you can also remarket in the ad grant. It's a little bit harder with paid search, but you can do it. The way that I would do that is maybe by customizing your message a little bit more. So if you created a remarketing list of everyone who's donated to you in the past 365 days, then added that remarketing list to your campaign, maybe even the campaign that's working the best, I might duplicate it and then add the remarketing list there. Change your copy on your ads to give that donation call to action. You've donated to us once before. This is what we did with your money. This is what we want to do this year. And put the donor at the center of your focus in that copy. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Well, if that's everything for today, I will go ahead and let you all go. Unless, Kirsten, am I missing anything here? I'm all good? Okay, well, thank you all again for joining another cause-inspired webinar. It was fantastic talking with you all. Please send us your questions and have a wonderful rest of your week.